Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Jen. I wanted to have a quick bioregulator class and just basically learning. I wanted everyone to know why I use these, why it's a process that I use at specific times, give some case examples, and basically just go into detail more about it. And just a disclaimer, these statements and products are not diagnosed to treat, cure any disease. And I disclaim all liability, and this is educational purpose only, and seek the advice of your physician. And if I'm not your physician, then I can be if you live in the states that I practice. So there's so much more to bioregulators, and I have a whole Peptides 101 course where we talk about peptide prep, when we want to use these, when we can move on to longevity. This is not something that I use right off the bat in everyone because there is such a thing as supplement fatigue, and everyone is also at a different part of their health and their health journey. And these just need to be used at the right time using gestalt and expertise of the physician. So this is why if you're a patient that's listening, sometimes I bring these up, sometimes I don't. There's also cost factors. There's, like I said, supplement fatigue, taking too many pills, where we're at in the progress, where I think it would be helpful versus not. So we're going to go through some studies with bioregulators and talk more about them. So these are bioregulators. This is what they look like. They are just little supplements, oral supplements that you take, which is great. Like sometimes I will use bioregulators with patients instead of injectable peptides because it's a compliance issue. And this is where personalized medicine comes in. And you're not going to get this if you are working with someone that is a doc in a box that is seeing, a bunch of patients a day. This is something that you're going to get from a one-on-one relationship with your physician and personalized medicine. And that's how it should be. So what are bioregulators? Bioregulators are short chains of amino acids, usually 2 to 4 amino acids in length. They're coined short-term capsaicin peptides because of who found them. And they increase telomere length. We know that from the studies. Bioregulators can increase telomere length. And they restore the main functions of the body organs in a tissue-specific manner. And we will go into detail more about that later. So these short chain peptides or bioregulators can enter the cell nuclei and change gene expression and protein synthesis in a positive way. So there's complementary interaction between short chain peptides and DNA. There's chromatic decondensation, which is why they're so good for the aging organs and how they are more longevity coined. They create changes in gene conformation and expression, the synthesis of tissue-specific proteins, and they also affect cell proliferation and differentiation, and regulation of biochemical and physiological processes. And a lot of this lecture class is reference to peptides and the epigenetic control of aging by Professor Cavison. They work in different ways, and it's pretty cool. And I've said this before, like peptides, it's a lock and key and it's not a crowbar. So bioregulators help with cellular action of the peptide bioregulators by exerting their effects by interacting with specific receptors on the surface of the cells. So they can bind to cell surface receptors. They can have receptor activation and signal transduction. They can modulate gene expression, and they can regulate cellular functions. Vladimir Cavison, so he was a professor at the St. Petersburg Institute of Bioregulation and Gerontology, and he was in the peptide division, and he has over 700 scientific publications and 205 patents and inventions, and he did pass away last year, but his legacy lives on. And just a little bit about him, he was born in Germany, and then he went to Russia and worked there, mainly at the St. Petersburg Medical Academy of the Russian Ministry of Health. So what is lifespan, and why is this so important when we talk about bioregulators? So when we look at longevity and lifespan, this is increasing the mean lifespan of animals up to 25% to 30% versus control. This is what we're seeing in the rat studies on bioregulators. And the biggest bioregulators for this were thymogen and epitalon. And they also have really robust anti-tumor activity. And these were the two that were studied in detail, and we will go through those studies. So with aging, the amount of heterochromatin in the cell nucleus increases, and this correlates with the inactivation of genes that were previously active. So this is age-related heterochromatization, and this is reversible based on bioregulatory experiments, and this is very cool. So this chart is really helpful, and I know my patients out there, I'm like, I'm going to record this for you guys because I want you to see this graph specifically. So Cavison talks about the biological reserve of the human life, and this is the changes in gene expression. So it's that biological reserve that we are trying to tap into. Now, if you don't have the pillars of health, I talk about this a lot, the movement, eat, sleep, move, breathe, right? Like the book I wrote. If you don't have those pillars, yes, bioregulators will help, but it's like you're not optimal. And this is why I talk about peptide prep in my Peptides 101 course. I would highly recommend you go get that. It's under courses on Healthy by Dr. Jen. And it's really inexpensive to take that. Lots of content. And this is one of the modules in it. So if we want to tap into that biological reserve, okay, so why do we not live until 100 anymore, or 110 or 120? Well, because we have changes in expression of those genes from disturbances such as biorhythms, water or food. We also have adverse factors, stress, especially with my female patients, environmental factors, and radiation can also cause that. So we have premature aging. And you could see this if you have people that have lived under a lot of stress. Like look at the US presidents after their 4-year term, they look like they've aged 10 years because they are having changes in gene expression due to that insult, due to these disturbances and adverse factors. And this is actually decreasing their lifespan, right? So I think the president should hire me. And y'all know I like the Maha and MAGA movement, so I can get him on some bioregulators and help with the lifespan. So we can tap into that biological reserve of the human life. And remember, we said that in animals, that was about that 25 to 30%. So that is why this is so cool. So what are bioregulators? Bioregulators, we have their peptides, right? And they help influence these adverse premature aging. So we have the adverse factors, stress, radiation, environmental, we talked about that. That leads to decreased gene activity, that leads to decreased protein synthesis and decreased organ function, and then pathological processes and accelerated aging. So that accelerated aging is the part that we are trying to get a handle on. And this is just an abstract talking about peptides of the pineal gland and thymus prolonging human life. So we know this, and we will go into these studies a little bit more. So these studies, basically, we can break them down two ways: the elderly people and the old people. So the elderly people were ages 60 to 74. The initial mean age was 69.3 years. Okay, so the mortality rate in the course of 8 years, 13.6%, and 12 years, 44.1, which makes sense, right? 60 to 74, that's where we're seeing diseases causing morbidity and mortality in this age group, diseases of aging, such as like diabetes, hypertension, stroke, all of that. So the initial mean age for the patients that were on the pineal gland only peptide was 71. So in 8 years, they had an 8.5 mortality, and 12 years, 22.3. So it cut the mortality in half by just taking one bioregulator peptide. And then the old people, the initial mean age was 80. Mortality rate, they only did in 6 years because they're older, was 81. Pineal gland group, 81, was the mean age. Mortality rate at 6 years was 45. And then pineal and thymus together, the mortality rate in 6 years was 33. So that just even chopped it more. So the thymus bioregulator is more of the immune regulation. So the thymus gland is what we have really large as a kid, and then it diminishes as we age. And there's other factors that influence thymus aging also. Okay. So let's talk, and this is just, I do have a peptide course I have some free gifts too that you guys can check out. So when we talk about, there's natural peptide bioregulators and then artificial peptide bioregulators. So there's pros and cons with each. I like the natural peptide bioregulators better. They're derived from raw animal materials as opposed to the artificial that is in the laboratory. And natural ones take about, you see effects in a week, but it can take about a year. It takes, you have up to a year for after cessation of taking them where they can keep working. So a lot of the times I will cycle patients on these for a couple months, take a break, depending on what's going on with them, and it's patient specific. So then the artificial ones, they are going to have noticeable effects faster, but then it kind of like goes off, okay, a little bit after 6 months. And then, so you just have to look at pros and cons. I like the natural better, like I said. And these are just the names of the natural peptide bioregulators to go through. They all have really, really cool names. And then the synthesized have their own names. Now, how do we start using bioregulators? I would urge you work with someone that is peptide illiterate, not illiterate, peptide literate. There's a lot of illiterate peptide cowboys and cowgirls out there and bioregulators. And there's even an MLM that is peptide, which I almost got involved with, and it is sketchy. So we need to make sure that we are going to trusted sources and we are getting good information. I mean, I was just out to dinner with an older couple we're friends with, and he was telling me his on growth hormone secretagogue, so a peptide, injectable peptide, and he was taking it all wrong. He was taking it 7 days straight in the morning. And I'm like, no, it needs to be at night on an empty stomach, 5 days on, 2 days off. And this is all covered in my course. There's a lot of craziness going on. So when we look at bioregulators, like it depends. It depends on how you use them. Is it an acute problem? Is there a specific goal? Or are you just trying to improve longevity? So when we start using bioregulators, mostly I have most patients on 2 capsules once a day for 10 days. And I will usually pulse them for a couple months on that, and we'll take a break and we'll see what's going on. You could also, if it's more acute issue, do 4 capsules once a day for 10 days. And then also for more of an acute issue, 2 capsules for 30 days. And then after that, 2 capsules for 10 days. So there's some stacks. And when I look at a patient and what's going on with them, if they're younger and they are specifically like having fertility and thyroid problems, I will start them on ovary, thyroid, and adrenal. Maybe some thymus, depending on like, I don't want them to get fatigued with taking these. Now, me personally, I'm on a longevity routine, a year-long one where I'm testing my epigenetics and my biological age. And I want to see how I'm improving those metrics as I age. And it will be really cool to see it this year because we moved, and that's one of the most stressful things you can do. So if I actually the last year kept my biological age close to the same, I would be happy. Even though I'm trying to go down, we had a really stressful year of moving. So I take 5 to 6 each month because I looked at the OCMI score of my different organs, and I have a podcast on that. This is something that you can get through me, that we can work through this. I love looking at this data. I love putting people on longevity routines. There's just not a good compliance. Like right now I have a handful of patients on it and they drop off to compliance, which is not good, right? And a lot of the times I don't suggest things to patients because I don't think they'll have good compliance. Now, if they brought it up to me, I would be like, oh, you're ready? Let's go. Let me craft this for you. But not everyone's there yet. Sometimes I can't even get people to commit to, wearing a continuous glucose monitor or just eating more protein. And we're all at different steps of our health. And that's for me as your guide to help you with that. Or if you have like a good health coach too, to see like where you're at with your steps. So longevity, by far, pineal, thymus, and blood vessel, okay? Brain health, pineal, CNS, and blood vessel. Longevity, I went the wrong way. Performance, thymus, muscle, cartilage, and blood vessel. So I really like the muscle and the cartilage, especially there's a lot of people with that. Now, keep in mind, if we're looking at performance, there's other peptides we could use. There's other supplements. You should be on creatine. That's a low-hanging fruit. Go to my website and get the creatine. 5 grams a day. You should be keeping your inflammation low and your gut health good, because we know that osteoarthritis is an inflammatory process. Your hormones should be balanced. So there's so much more. This isn't a magic pill. It's not a magic shot. That's my biggest thing with peptides, is it's not like a panacea. Like, that doesn't exist. Well, there's one thing that fixes everything, and that's Jesus. So, he died for our sins. We just have to accept it in our heart, have faith, and repent of our sins. And Jesus does fix it all. So that is one thing in medicine that we are ignoring. Okay, so lipoprotein. So this would be cholesterol problems like statins. And oh my goodness, you've had so much heart disease in your family. Liver, pancreas, and vessel would be good to go on. Cardiac, vessel, heart, and pineal. Metabolic stack. This is like type 2 diabetes or dementia type 3 diabetes are a concern. So liver, pancreas, and blood vessel would be a good stack. Prostate health, prostate obviously, and vessel. So it's interesting because peptides, these bioregulators, if I took a testes bioregulator, it wouldn't do anything because I don't have testes. Okay. Yeah. Even the trans people, not working. We're going with man is man, woman is woman. And it's the same with bioregulators. So men, they have specific prostate and testes, and women have the ovaries. And this goes with fertility. So for female, pineal, ovarian, vessel, and for male, pineal, testicular, and vessel. So is there any contraindications? We always want to ask when we're talking about medications or different supplements or anything. Intolerance to the components, obviously, which not many people have problems with these. I've given these out to hundreds of patients and they do well. Pregnancy and breastfeeding, just hold off on that or work with your doctor with that. You can take these bioregulators and peptides with other supplements, absolutely. And how many bioregulators can you take at a time? Usually we say up about 4 or 5 max, and you want to work with a peptide for these specific stacks and have them come up with a plan for you. What about side effects? 15 million people have undergone bioregulator treatment for 30 years and have no side effects. And this fact is, peptides in animals and humans are identical, and our body sees them as their own, and because they're just short snippets of amino acids. So peptides only normalize protein synthesis, but they can't overstimulate it. So if I gave someone with Graves and then another person with Hashimoto's the thyroid bioregulator, and I've done this many times, it is not going to make them worse. It's not going to overstimulate it. It's not going to downregulate. It's just going to improve it, because we are looking at gene expression and health, and we're tapping into that reserve. Okay. So we're healing the tissue specific with the bioregulators that has been damaged from those causes, environmental adverse factors that we talked about before. It's repairing that. Okay. Now, some of you are probably like, oh, can I like regenerate tissue and totally heal diseases? And we don't have like case studies on that, but it's going to help. If you've had Hashimoto's for 10 years and have done nothing for your health, we'll take a thyroid bioregulator, reverse it, and you won't have to be on meds ever again. Probably not, just out of what I've seen and experienced, but it will help it. And we want to stop disease progression and then support that tissue, as is. So you can get peptides, Profound Health. I have them on my website for the bioregulators. And then you want to work with your prescriber for other peptides, of course, too. So that is it. Thank you so much. I just wanted to get this out there. I will put this on my YouTube so you guys can share with whoever you want. Please reach out if you have questions. If I have some bioregulators out of stock, it doesn't take me long to get them back in. And I just really want us to be good stewards of our health and our body and use the tools that we have to do that, and tapping into that biological reserve. And, now that we know better, we do better, but we still are facing a lot of adverse factors. There's risk and circumstances that happen. So we need to do that, but continue to work on the pillars of your health, have your basics. I take supplements. I take about 10 supplements daily. Sometimes I add in more because we live in a toxic world and we have a lot of stress. We have nutrient depleted food and everything. So it's hard, but if you have a guide, if you have a good physician to walk you through it, it's great. But make sure you're consistent with follow up with them, because if something comes up, we need to address it and fix it. And then the fun part, once everything is stable, once we've worked hard, the fun part is longevity medicine. It is feeling better now than you did in your 20s. It's looking in the mirror and saying, I have energy, I feel good, I'm going to conquer, I'm going to go out there. So that's how I feel. If you have off days, you should be able to identify what is causing that. Maybe you're feeling sluggish because you're eating like crap, like garbage, or you stayed up late and you did not sleep. So we should be able to identify those things. If you are not identifying those and you are just constantly feeling like crap, then you need to seek wisdom, seek health from a board certified physician and get to the bottom of it. Okay. Okay. So those are bioregulators. That's why I love them so much. If you see me out and about, or if I meet someone at a party and they're like, hey, Dr. Jen, tell me everything about bioregulators, I would literally sit there for 20 minutes and talk to them. But I had a friend tell me once that if someone doesn't ask your opinion, don't give it. So I have been trying to shut my mouth more, do more education online. People know where it's at. They know where they can listen. And then if they want my advice or help, they can see me as a patient, or they can ask me at a social situation, because I just love talking it. This is the gift that God gave me. It's medicine, and I'm very passionate about it. Okay, if this was helpful, like even just a little teeny bit, just a little bit, like you got one nugget out of this, the rest of it you were like, no, but one nugget, please comment below what that nugget was. Like, subscribe, and share. Okay. The stuff I'm talking about, shocker, doesn't really work well with the algorithms. And, I've prayed to the Lord. I'm like, if you want to breathe on this, please breathe on it. Like, I'm just doing your will. I use me as a vessel, and I will be obedient. And I have been honestly struggling with that a lot. And I don't ask for help. So honestly, like that, like humbling myself to that and asking for help is one thing that I need to get better at. So me asking for help is one of it. So thank you so much.